Hi, everyone. It's Dawn Fisher, Morning Glory Needleworks. Welcome, welcome. I'm so excited to be here. Welcome to my 15th FlossTube video. Again, I'm so excited. Thank you again to everybody who subscribed, commented, liked my channel. As always, all the links I talk about are listed in the description of the video. On my laptop, it's below the video. I don't know where it would be on your phone or however you're watching it. But inside there are links to everything I talk about. And I'll tell you what the links are when I get to them. As always, I've created chapters. So if you don't want to watch a certain section, or if you want to only watch a certain section again, I've put a timestamp in there of when that chapter starts. So there'll be the beginning one, of course, and then the few things I'm going to be talking about this time, and including some really exciting news, and Stitch of the Month, because it is first of the month. So if you want to just jump to those, go ahead and jump to those. Another thing in my life update, I know some of you watched the last video and I talked about cancer. Now, if you don't want to listen to that, and I totally understand, my father had cancer, and after that happened, I couldn't talk about it for a while. So if you don't want to listen to what I have to say, it's not bad, but I don't mind. I just pause the video now and then click on the next chapter in the video, and you won't have to listen to this part. And like I said, I totally understand. That is your choice. So now, again, I am going to discuss cancer. I want to say thank you to everybody who offered healing thoughts, prayers, for Jeffrey, my significant other, who had surgery on July 12th for colon cancer. It's very early stage. The surgery went great. It was amazing how great it went. Unfortunately, the cancer hadn't spread through the colon. They did the slice test. It hadn't gone any further than the section she took out, but it did show up in 2 of the 19 lymph nodes they removed. So at this point, we don't know what the next steps are. Again, it was very early, so we're thankful for that. We see the surgeon on Monday, or on the 1st, so it would be today. And she's going to it's just a follow-up visit. His incision is fabulous. I mean, you can't even hardly see it. He'll be able to wear a Speedo again. As if he ever wore one. But she actually glued the edges together. So it's unbelievable. It looks like a plastic surgeon did it. He actually did so well. He was off pain medication other than occasional Tylenol before he even left the hospital. He ended up being in the hospital a little bit longer than they planned, mostly because his insides didn't want to start working right away. So that was the only problem he had, but he's about back to normal now. We don't know what the restrictions are, other than he's still on a low fiber diet, which is pretty boring. No spices, no sausage, no crunchy stuff. You can have pretzels. It's like the opposite diet of what you would expect. You can have rice and white bread and things like that, gluten-free white bread for him. But anyway, and then after we see her next week on the 8th, we see the oncologist for the first time. So then we'll know more. So on the next video, I can give you some more information. I don't want to turn these videos into just talks about cancer, but I also want you to know what's going on in our life right now. And we're good. He's happy. He's getting around good. We went to see a movie. He couldn't eat any popcorn, unfortunately, but we did go see Top Gun, which was excellent. And so again, we'll have I'll have more information on the next in the next video. And again, as I said before, please do the home test, get a colonoscopy, any other medical, I'm having a mammogram later this month, you know, anything to catch this early. So that's enough of that. So I'm going to move on to the next item I want to talk about, which is there is still a few spaces left in the upcoming Grandma's Button Box class I'm doing. It is local here in Florida. So if you do live in the state of Florida, it's in Trenton, Florida, and which is, I think, about 3 hours north of St. Petersburg, where I live. But it's a one-day class, and you'll be working on the top of this button box. If you haven't seen the previous videos, this is actually a Whitman's chocolate box, and it's just covered with fabric. The kit includes the linen, the threads, which are silky. If you have not used silky threads yet, I love them. I'm using them in a lot of designs now. It'll include all these vintage buttons, but you are welcome to bring your own buttons also. So you'll learn how to attach each of the buttons. Nancy Walsh actually on Facebook and Instagram, she posted her button box she just finished. It's lovely. It's funny because everyone is different. The different buttons make a big difference. Some people bring their own, their grandma's buttons. These buttons are from my grandma's box, but I do search all the time at flea markets and other places for vintage buttons to include in the kits. And I always try and include some special ones. This next class is going to include some China button and a few other unusual buttons. So the kit includes the linen for the top, the threads, the buttons. There's padding under here, batting under here, and a piece of foam core. It also includes this wonderful banding, which is 18 count, and it's got this lovely pre-finished edge on it. So this is very easy to finish. This is all glued on there. Yes, glue. Yes, we use glue, but just on this. So anyway, but this is what I put on the front. You'll also have this full alphabet, this full alphabet, and this full alphabet for personalization. So anyway, again, so there's a link in the bottom there of where to get the information about the class. It's a one-day class. It's from 9 to 4. It's being offered 2 days. I know one day is almost full, so it may be full by now because I know they were having another meeting. And so it's from 9 to 4. The first class is Friday, September 23rd of 2022. And the next class is Saturday, the 24th, again, from 9 to 4. There is some pre-work, so I have to get these kits mailed out. You need to stitch this vine before the class. It's not a lot of pre-work, but that way you can see where to put the buttons. And the most amazing thing of all, this class is very reasonable. The total fee for the class is $130. Now that includes your kit. It does not include the chocolates, but they may have some there. I don't know. They may have some available. But I mean, you can buy these at anywhere at Walmart, Publix, whatever your local grocery store is. So anyway, the total class fee is $130. That includes the kit, the teaching fee, and lunch. That's a wonderful deal. So again, be sure to click on the link, and there's a form there you can fill out and send in. I believe there's other contact information, but I'm very excited about teaching for this group. I've been to some of their other classes, and I'm just really excited about this. So spread the word, and I hope you will come. So next, I have such exciting news. I've been updating you guys, or everyone, on every video of Sary Outfil, my sampler from 1709 that I'm reproducing. Well, I'm so happy to announce I can't even believe it. She is done. I finished her last week and then finished the hem stitching on it yesterday, which took a little longer than I planned, but not bad. And I've been doing some other stuff in between. I'm going to do a big presentation of her, of all the different parts of it. I'm just thrilled. I just can't even believe it's done and how quickly I got her done, because it is a big piece. It's not real wide, about the width, I think, finished. Let me measure it real quick, is just about 7.5 inches. And that includes the hem stitching. So, and the length is about 38 inches. And that includes the hem stitching. Now that I've removed all the excess and the edges are hem stitched. So that's the actual finished size of the piece, not the stitching area, but the actual measurements of the piece. So I'm going to show you all the parts of it. The hard thing is she's so long, it's very hard to hold her up and even get a picture of the entire piece. I've had a heck of a time getting a good picture of the piece. Right now, all I have is my cell phone for pictures, and it just does not do it justice. But so I'm going to switch, go to PowerPoint, and I'm going to go through each section of the sampler, because as you will remember, I broke her into 10 different sections. The pattern is in sections because areas of it are stitched over 3 threads and areas are stitched over 4 threads. So it made it a real challenge to chart it, because it's very hard to chart something over 3 and over 4 on the same chart. So anyway, there's sections. It's broken down into sections, and each section, you know, it's where it seemed a good place to break it off. And I'm going to go over each section and talk about the different stitches in it. And then at the end, I'll talk a little bit about hem stitching and probably show the live piece so you can see it even better than on the slides. So I'm going to pause here and switch to my PowerPoint, and then we'll get into it. So here we are. This is the original sampler on the right side of the screen, I guess it is. On my right side. And this is the original. This is how I got it. It was shipped from England. I had it shipped in the frame because I thought it would be better to keep it in the frame, even though it costs a lot more to have it shipped. And it stayed in the frame for quite a while. And then I was debating on removing it from the frame, and I was kind of leery because it is old and fragile, and not as fragile as you would think. But one day I was looking really closely at it and realized there was live insects inside the frame, which happens. I believe they were actually termites. I'm not sure, because some of the wood was eaten away. So needless to say, that day I decided to remove it from the frame. So I took it and laid it down on a table, and it took me about 2 hours to remove it from the frame. It was actually nailed down, and you can see in some of the pictures the nail holes where it had rusted and actually eaten away at the fabric. This is very common. It was nailed to a piece of wood. So like I said, it took me about 2 hours. I pulled all the nails out carefully, one by one. I saved them all because they were old. I mean, I don't think this is the original frame that's over 300 years old, but it was nailed in there with the old square handmade nails. So I removed it from the frame. I threw away the wood that was behind it. I did keep the frame. It was in okay shape. And just took it apart. The insects, you can actually roll your antique needlework up and put it in the freezer, and then that will kill any insects that are in the fabric itself. And it's very common to find insects in needlework, unfortunately, especially like wool and things like that. This is all silk. But anyway, so, and then when I unframed her, that's when I found out the beautiful colors that were on the back. This is almost reversible, not totally, but pretty reversible. I'm glad I did, because she has some different stitches on there that I'd not seen before, a couple of them. So I, because I could see the back, it was easier to figure out the stitches. And also the colors are amazing on the back. They look very dull, but there's a very deep red, a beautiful blue, there's a lovely dark green. So you'll see this because I'll show you in the next picture here. This is the top section, and you can see how much brighter the colors are on the left. This is section 1. This is all cross stitch, all worked over 3 threads. There's one little section at the bottom I kind of overlapped, and that's actually double running, the little viney things at the bottom. But, and you can see at the top, I actually have it pinned to a piece, an ironing board, actually, because while I was taking pictures and to keep it flat, I did pin inside the holes, not through the fabric itself, but you can see up on the top left of the original sampler, which is on the right. It's the darker one. It's obviously very faded, and the linen is very discolored. Now the one on the left, the actual linen is a little bit darker than that. I did coffee dye the linen. It's 46 count, which matches the original. It's really pretty close to the same size as the original, but you can see the colors are much brighter on the left hand side, and some of the other pictures they will show up better. But again, this is all stitched over 3 threads, this area here. So that is section 1. And you can see there's some initials here. There's, you can see the O, there's an I and an O. Now her name is Sary Outfil, Outfil, is what she put on the sampler. I get the feeling from the little bit of research I did and from the few names I could find, I could not find an Outfil name anywhere on, I was searching ancestry.com and some of the other genealogy sites, but there was a Sary Outfil, and I think her name was Sary Outfil. I need to do some more digging. There, you know, information comes in all the time, but Sary was probably her nickname, and she may not have known how to spell her name. A lot of times they don't know. I've seen that on other samplers where the girls' names are spelled wrong, or the stitcher, not just girls. Their names are spelled wrong because they didn't know. And she may have been called Sary all her life and did not know that her official name is Sarah. So we'll move on to section 2. Oh, wait, these are close-ups, a little bit more close-up of the 2 samplers. I tried to make them bigger. So you can see on the bottom of the of each picture, there's initials here. There's behind the Z, there's a Y and a Z. And then there's an I and an O, an E and an O, and an H and an O. And so those are probably her relatives' names. So that's something else I can use to research, find a girl named Sary Outfil with relatives, sisters, brothers, mother, father, with these initials. So this is something, you know, I'm going to have to keep researching Sarah. So here is section 2. Now this section is over 4 threads. These are Algerian eyelet stitches. The whole alphabet, the bands in between are Algerian eyelet over 4 threads. So that's, it's actually charted, I think, over 2 because each step of the stitch is over 2 threads, but it's over 4 threads. And then again, you can see at the top, the little curly cues that come out. Those are from the section above. And then along the bottom, there's a row of satin stitch, which is the next section. So this is just a lovely, lovely alphabet. And again, there's more initials I, O, S, O, E, O in this section. And here's closer up pictures of the sampler, this section of the sampler. So you can really see the eyelet stitches and the comparison. Some of the threads are almost the same color as the background. And she used a very, very, very pale blue. So it's almost white in some sections. It looks white. So this is section 3. Now this is all worked over 3 threads. This had quite a few different stitches. The entire alphabet is worked over satin stitch. The top alphabet is satin stitch, which is just lovely. There's a few Algerian eyelets scattered throughout. You can see there's bands across the bottom, and the alphabet on the bottom is all worked in cross stitch. And then there's some little filigrees and flowers that are double running stitch. Again, this section is all worked over 3 threads. And here's a close-up. This is a close-up of the original. So you can see the beautiful satin stitches. And she actually did satin stitch bands, vines in between. So it's really a lovely, lovely section. And here's the reproduction. Again, it's not this bright. It looks very bright on my screen. So it's a little more, you can see the stitches a little bit better in the original. And I'll be showing that to you. And I'm hoping when you see it on the camera that it will show up better. And again, she's got the same initials here, I-O, E-O, H-O, S-O. So I'm assuming that is her family. Now this is section 4. And again, this is done over 3 threads. There's satin stitch, it's almost all satin stitch and some double running or 4-sided stitch. And this is the section where she actually signed her name. And she says, Sary Outfil is my name, and with my needle, I wrought this same. So that was kind of fun, the way she had it wording. We see this a lot on samplers, but I've not seen it wrought this same. So that was unusual. And it wasn't until I started really charting it and looking at it close that I realized how she had worded it. Whoops, a little carried away there. Let me see. Oh, I must not have a close-up of those. That's as close as I got on those. So this is section 5. This is double running stitch, and it's got the 2 little boxer guys on it. Now this section is different. It's worked over 3 threads and 4 threads. So the large center section with the 2 boxers and the big flower pot or whatever it is in the middle, those are all worked over 4 threads. So I think that's part of the reason it sounds really tiny working on 46 count linen. But if you're working over 3 or 4 threads, it's actually fairly big. And then on the left and the right of the little boxer guys, I think I discussed them in an earlier video. You can go look them up. And I talked about the meaning behind them. And there's a flower pot vase on each side. And those are actually worked over 3 threads. So this one's different in that it's worked over 3 and 4 threads, mostly 4 threads. And this one, unfortunately, if you've watched other videos, I actually charted it wrong to begin with and had the boxers way over way too far. And I had the boxer on the left and the entire center flower done when I finally realized that it was wrong. So I had to take it all out. Days of work. But I took it out because I want it to be right and I want it to match the original. So here's close-ups of it. And you can see the little boxer guys. On the bottom one, you can see their faces better. That's the original. But on the top, you can see some of the other details a lot better. And you can see the flowers on the left and right, which are worked over 4 threads. Now, the base that the flowers are sitting on is worked over 4 threads, but the flower itself is worked over 3 threads. So that's, there's a lot of little filigrees and little details inside the flowers. And when I talked about it before, I found quite a number of other samplers with the same designs in the leaves and the flowers. So now this is section 6. And again, it's over 3 threads. Now this section has satin, double running, and detached buttonhole. And I talked about detached buttonhole in a couple of my other videos also. So the top band you can see is satin stitch, the whole vine and everything. And the next bands, the base of them is the double running or reversible. It's not totally reversible because of the way it's done. You can't really do it exactly reversible, but that's mostly double running. And then you can see in the bottom flowers on the left and right, those are have detached buttonhole filled in the flowers. They look a lot lighter on Sary's, but I kind of I moved some of the threads around and I could see the actual colors. And also on the back, because with detached buttonhole, there isn't much stitching on the back. It's all open. You're actually working across the top of the fabric, across the top of the linen. So all you can see is a few little stitches around the side with the color of the linen. So here's a close-up. This is Sary's, and you can see the detached buttonhole in the bottom section, and then all the double running sections and the beautiful satin stitch at the top. Now, this is my version, the reproduction of it, and you can see the detached buttonhole. They're challenging. They're not hard. It's just I never feel like they look as good as they should. But then when I looked at Sary's, hers aren't perfect either. So it's just, that's the nature of the beast. So anyway, but it was enjoyable. I actually stitched the whole sampler first and then went back and did the detached buttonhole because I wasn't sure if I wanted to work in hand or with it still on the scroll rods. I ended up doing it with the sampler still on the scroll rods because I kind of feel that's how she would have done it. So this is section 7. Now this section is all worked over 4 threads, and this is all double running except for a couple stitches that I call Sary stitches that I had not seen before. They are on the top section. They're all in that top first band, the top band. So there's 2 like big red stitches. I don't know if you'll be able to see my cursor on my mouse, but there's like 3 of them. And they're kind of red. Now in hers, she used a thicker thread. So it, when it's reproduced, if you stitch it, you might want to use 2 strands. I'll probably put that in the instructions. I decided to leave it the way it is because you can really see the way the stitches made better, but it took me a while to figure it out. And then on the 2 little flowers on the top, there's 4 pink I don't know what they are, sprouts that stick out of each flower, and those are the other stitch. And again, that one, it was challenging to figure it out because there's some layers to the stitch that you have to do a couple things first and then go over top. It's kind of like a padded stitch. So anyway, it was a lot of fun, and it was kind of one of those yes moments when I figured out what the stitch was and how to reproduce it. So here's again a close-up of it. So you can see on the top the stitches, they look kind of grayish pink, I guess. And again, hers are much thicker. Her silk may not have been as fine as the silk I was using, and it also varied you know, they're so varied in thickness. So, and here is my reproduction of it. So like I said, it's a little bit more open, but I kind of like the way it looks. She may have used more base stitches. This one's also kind of a layered stitch. So, but I'm just going to leave it the way it is. I think I may work up a couple different versions of it and see, and give them as an option. So this section is different. Also, this is section 8. Now this is worked over 3 threads. So the left-hand side is double running stitch and detached buttonhole. So that was kind of fun. The big flowers, and then you can see the acorns, and some of the petals and the centers of the flowers are filled in with detached buttonhole. And then on the right, it's all cross stitch over 3 threads. So that was kind of fun. And at the bottom, you can't see it real well. Hopefully in the next pictures you can, but it's actually just straight stitches, like half crosses. So, oh, I didn't get it so much in this one, but this is a little bit closer. I wanted them side by side so you could see how they look together. There's a few little around the cross stitch on the right. There's actually some acorns and some other little filigree things that tendrils that are double running stitch also. And then the 2 like carnations on the bottom right, the cross stitch, every stitch in that is also outlined. It was kind of different, but I did see that on some other samplers too. And then you can see on the left, the acorns, the petals, the blue petals in the top flowers. That is all detached buttonhole. And then the flowers down at the bottom, the detached buttonhole is actually worked in different directions. Now this section 9 is also double running, and then there's a band of double running and a band of cross stitch across the bottom. And there's some, there might be some eyelet stitches in there too, but I can't even tell you how much I even enjoy, even after having to pull out large sections because I made a mistake. I just really enjoyed stitching this. So this is the final section on my reproduction. This is section 10. It's worked over 3 threads. It is mostly diagonal cross stitch over 3. So all the vines, the big flowers, those are all diagonal cross stitch. And then there's a few little tendrils that are double running, and then like the, I don't know what they are, the stems, I guess it would be the stems of the flower. There's a pink one and a green one. That is just basic cross stitch. And also, I left off a section, which I'm going to talk about next. This is a section off the original. And it had her initials, SO. So you can see down, I put the initials in this section. There were some open areas, and I put her initials, SO. And then on the right, I put 1710, because that date must have been when she finished it. And that is actually in the next section on the original, which I did not reproduce. But I wanted to include it because obviously it took her a while to stitch this. And so she must have started it in 1709 because that's the original date. And then she finished it in 1710. I mean, how many of us have started a project in 1 year and then finished it the next year? I think a lot. Also, I don't think I mentioned, but I actually started this sampler around January 20th of 2022, and I'm just shocked that it only took me about 6 months to finish it. I really didn't work on anything else during this time, maybe a few others, you know, when I was at a with some people just stitching. I didn't bring this along because it is big and cumbersome, and I also have to concentrate. But when I went to retreats, this is what I worked on the whole time. I went to several retreats during this time. So this is what I worked on, but I'm just surprised at how quickly she worked up. So now I'm going to show you what I call section 11. Again, I did not, oh no, this is the bigger picture. So you can see the the diagonal cross stitch, and they're hard to see, but there's a few little double running tendrils off the side of some of the stitches. Oh, and the row across the top, I forgot to mention that, is herringbone, double herringbone stitch. And then the stitch across the bottom, there's just 2 rows of straight stitch, and that is actually back stitch. I was shocked. It's not double running. It's actually back stitch. You can tell on the back because back stitch has a lot more thread. So I just did it in back stitch the same way Sary did. And then you can see my hem stitching around the edges, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But this is a section I did not reproduce because I am not an expert in this, and I don't know enough to reproduce it. I love it. It's beautiful. I have done it, not very much, but I will try anything. But this section of lace work, reticella, whatever, it's amazing. It's beautiful. And down on the lower right, you can see her initials, S-O. And then down in the bottom, there's a 1-7, a 17, right above the hole. There's a hole that, again, those are nail holes. And then there's a 1-7, and then there's a 1 and a 0. The 1 on top and the 0 on the bottom. So that was how she kind of squeezed in her the date she finished it, which I love. And also, I wanted to tell you, this section of the sampler, when I unframed it, there was actually a piece of paper behind this section. I guess because there was wood behind it, they didn't want the wood to show through. So when I took that paper out, it had discolored so much from being on the wood, the acidity in the wood, you could actually see this whole design on the paper. So that's why if you're framing, please be very careful. Use acid-free materials. Don't nail it to a piece of wood, please, or glue it, or whatever. Anyway, that's a whole nother story. But this is the section, unfortunately, I did not reproduce. So next, I want to talk about the hem stitching. The original was hem stitched, and so that's how I finished mine also. I kind of looked at the way Sary did it, and then I'm going to show you a book I used to remember. I've taken hem stitching classes, but I have not hem stitched for many, many years. So it's pretty much the same size. I made the hem stitch the same size. It's about 9 threads wide. And that's about what Sary's is. 9 threads to me sounds big, but when you're talking about 46 count linen, it's not that big. So that is that's the hem stitching. And then I'm going to talk about that a little bit. I'm not going to teach you how to do hem stitching at that time, but I may do that as one of the stitches of the month. If anybody's interested, if you are, let me know. And I will be glad to figure out a way to work it into our Stitch of the Month sampler so I can show you this. So I'm going to come out of this and then talk about the book I used. Oops, I forgot. There is one more slide. There we go. This is the original on the right and my reproduction on the left. So I'm very happy, and you can see why it's really hard to get a picture of something this long and have it turn out really clear. All the other pictures I did take with my phone, very up close and personal. So there you have the two side by side, and I just can't even tell you how thrilled I am to have her finished. So I'm going to talk about that, my next plans for this in a minute. Okay, I'm back. So what I wanted to talk about when I decided to hem stitch the edges, I pulled out one of my favorite books of all time, The Proper Stitch by Darlene Osteen. I actually bought this book, and 1994 when it came out. I took a class from Darlene Osteen. It was fabulous. And that's where I learned a lot of the stitches that are in this sampler, plus quite a few more. So in the book, there's a beautiful sampler for you to reproduce. And then she has very detailed instructions of all these different stitches. And I have learned a lot. She was a wonderful teacher, and the sampler, someday I need to get it out and show it. I took a 4-day class at an Embroiderers Guild of America seminar from Darlene, and I came home and kind of set the piece aside, which, happens a lot. And then finally one day I went, you know what, I'm going to finish this. This was in the 80s, in the late 80s, because it was before I moved to Florida. So I just I was working evenings and nights. I was working second shift. And so I would get up every morning and watch TV and work on it for 2 or 3 hours, watch my morning shows. And then, so I finally got it done. I hem stitched it, framed it. I entered it in the Ottawa County Fair. I'm from Michigan, Holland, Michigan. So I entered it in the Ottawa County Fair and won Best of Show. So that was thrilling. And then I decided, which I'd never done before, decided to enter it in the Michigan State Fair, which is in Detroit on the other side of the state. So I actually had to wrap the sampler. This is framed with glass and all that, and ship it to Detroit, which was really scary, not shipping it to Detroit, but wrapping it up and shipping it anywhere. And then my then husband, we actually, while the fair was going on, we actually drove to Detroit to see it, to see what I got, how if I got any ribbons on it. And I walked in, we were walking around and I couldn't find it. And I was horrified, it's like, oh my God, it's lost. So we looked everywhere and couldn't find it, or most everywhere. And so finally I asked, and the woman, she goes, oh, that's you. And she takes me by the hand and takes me over. And I won Best of Show at the Michigan State Fair against all the other Best of Show winners throughout the state. So I was thrilled. And this, I hadn't been stitching that long at that time. So I need to do a FlossTube on that. It needs to be reframed. So I may take it out and reframe it. But that was very exciting, let me tell you. Anyway, but that class I took from Darlene Osteen, and I believe I took another class from her too, because I took her I still have the article from the paper showing me winning all these things. So anyway, enough about me. Back to Darlene Osteen and her wonderful book. So what I did, I found the section in this book on hem stitching. This is a nice version. This is actually ring bound. And it tells you how to, you actually have to pull a thread out, how to line up and where to cut. So I did mine pretty much exactly the same way she did, because it kind of matched how Sary did hers. I really get the feeling Sary probably had the piece of linen and just hem stitched it and then filled it in. Now, I didn't do that. I hem stitched it after, that way, because some of the areas and Sary's are right up against the edge of the hem stitching and actually kind of crammed into it. So it says to me that she had it hem stitched first, and then as she was stitching, ran out of room. So what I did is I counted out 3 threads, 3 fabric threads from the edge of the outermost edge, because the sampler on the left side is pretty much straight, but on the right hand side it may be a little bit longer in places, so you really have to watch it. So I found the furthest part out and hem stitched, and that's where I started my hem stitch. So what you do, you pull out, you remove a thread, you actually pull out the thread. Now Darlene says to remove it all but the bottom and then weave it back in. I didn't do that. I just removed it, pulled it, the whole thread out, from end to end, which when you're dealing with a piece of fabric that's like 40 inches long, I think it was 42 inches long, was a challenge because it does break. So anyway, so then what you do, what I did, I followed her instructions. From that removed thread, I counted out 9 threads. And then you take a needle and run it down your fabric between 2 of the threads, and it like puts a dent in the fabric to make it easier to fold it. So I did that on all 4 sides. And again, it's long, it's big. Now this whole process of setting up for the hem stitching took about 2 hours, but it was worth it. On a piece this fabulous, I wanted to finish it the best way possible. So I did that on all 4 sides, and it just puts like a crease in the fabric. So you can, you have to make sure you put it between 2 linen threads and keep it straight. And she tells how to do this in the book. And then I counted out another 9 threads and did it again, because your hem is actually folded like 3 times. So I did that again, the same thing, crease the fabric with the needle to make it easier to fold. You don't have to iron it or anything. Then I counted out a 7 threads. And this is what she recommends. Now, if you want a bigger, I've done them with bigger, with 1/2 inch hems. It's up to you. But I did it the way she said because it seemed to fit. It matched. I actually counted the threads on Sary's, and it pretty much matched the way she did it. So then you count out 7 threads. So that's going to be your innermost fold, and you want it a little bit smaller. So at the 7th, I did not crease it. I actually removed a thread again. Then that's your cutting line. So that is where I cut away the excess linen, which is, it's scary. It is scary when you're cutting off linen on something you've worked on for so long and have, you know, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in, literally. And then you fold the edges over. And she shows in here in this book how to do a mitered corner. I did not do a mitered corner. I folded it over and then in. And so mine has square corners, and I'll show that in a minute, because that's the way Sary did it. Sary did not miter the corners. So I did it the way Sary did it. Whatever works for you. That's the way I see it. Whatever is going to make you feel the best about your piece. And again, this is how Sary did it. So that's how I did it. And then she has lovely stitch diagrams on here on how to do the hem stitch. So that's how I hem stitch this edge. Oh, I forgot to say, instead of after you fold it all up, I then took regular sewing thread. I did post some pictures on Instagram and Facebook, so you'll probably see those. I used a bright yellow sewing thread. I had do not use floss, because floss can actually leave some fuzzies in your fabric. So you're better off using sewing thread or quilting thread or something anytime you baste or if you grid, things like that. So I just used some cheap sewing thread I had, and I went and basted all the way around. I folded it down. I actually kind of pinned it and then folded it down, because you don't want a bunch of pins in something you're trying to stitch and hold down. So that is how I did it. Like I said, it took about 2 hours just to set it up to hem stitch. And then the hem stitching itself took 2 or 3 evenings. I didn't work on it, you know, for a huge amount of time each evening, maybe a few hours. I don't really stitch a lot during the day. This I did because I was trying to get it done. I wanted to make sure I had it done in time to do this video. So that's, I did stitch during the day, which I don't usually do. So luckily there was some good TV shows on, so I could sit and watch TV and work on my hem stitching. But it turned out really lovely, and I will do what I can do here so you can see. Isn't she beautiful? Wait, it goes on and on and on. And then I had her rolled up. So she's kind of rolled up, but here's the bottom section. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull up my little camera that I have that I use for my stitch demonstrations, which I'm going to use during Stitch of the Month. So I'm going to pull that up, and then I'll lay the sampler down so you can really see it up close, and I'll kind of move through it so you can get a better view of the sampler. Again, I can't tell you how much I love the sampler. So I'm hoping everybody wants to stitch it. So I'm going to talk about also what my next step is with the sampler. So hang on. Okay, so here we see section 1 of the sampler. You can see, again, this is cross stitch. You can see the hem stitching around the edges and this little bit of double running here down at the bottom, these two little tendrils. But this helps you to see the stitching much better here. Okay, here's this section. Oops, here we go. And this section is all trying to get it in focus a little bit better. This section is all eyelet stitch. Again, this is worked over 4 threads. You can see eyelet stitch across the top. The whole alphabets are eyelet stitch. You can see the initials down here, I-O, S-O-E-O, this cute little design she stuck in to fill out the rest of the sampler. Oh, and I wanted to show you, here is the back of, I don't want to show you the back of my stitching, but here is, see how I folded this? This is not a mitered corner. This is a flat fold. So I just folded the top down, then folded the sides down over top of that, and just basted it again, and then just went around and hem stitched it down. Hem stitching is not hard. It's actually kind of nice because it's mindless. You just, you can just sit and watch it. You don't have to look at a pattern. Once you know how to do the hem stitch, you can just watch TV and stitch away. So this section is satin stitch. This is cross stitch over 3. Again, here's all the initials, I-O, E-O, H-O, more I-O, E-O. I'm moving a light over to see if that'll help. There we go. And then the next section is cross stitch. Whoops, I'm too far up. There we go. Cross stitch and some double running stitch. You can see the beautiful colors, the pale pinks, pale blues. There's a nice bright yellow. It doesn't look real bright on screen, but they're very pretty. A little bit of double running stitch here. Here's satin stitch. This is the next section, and here's where she signed her name. It says Sary Outfil is M here, and Y, my name, and with my needle, I, W-O-O-R-T-H, so that's Roth, this same 1709. Now the 1709 is actually stitched over 2 threads. I forgot to include that in the other. So that's very tiny. This is satin over 3, and this is over 2. And then there's this cute little design with an eyelet here on the side, and then another satin stitch band. And here's the cute little, straighten them out. These are the boxers here. Focus that in a little bit. You can see she did every other stitch here. She did the red. It's actually a really pretty burgundy. And then the white as every other stitch. Their little faces are white, so it does make them hard to see. This section is over 4 threads. The base of these pots is over 4 threads. And then these 2 flowers on each side are over 3 threads. So it was really fun. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of cute little filigrees here and details. in this. And then move into the next section. This is satin here at the top. And then there's a double running band here. And then this section here is double running with the detached buttonhole in each of the petals. You can see that, filled in the petals with that. And then this band, this is the one that had the stitches that I'd not seen before. This stitch here, it's not that complicated, but it when you're trying to figure out what it is, at first I thought they were queen stitches, but then I really got on them and got out my super duper +5 magnifiers and looked at it, and actually used a magnifier and a magnifying readers and a magnifying glass to try and figure out what these stitches are. I can zoom in a little bit. Focus this, see if I can get that. And then these are the other stitches here, these 4, which are very similar to this. These stitches in the layout. Here you can see how bright that red is. And then there's some other little filigrees. These were fun. They were interesting and different. They're kind of, like I said, a padded stitch. So something I'd not seen before. I don't have a lot of samplers of this age, and the other one I have that's close to this age doesn't have a lot of different stitches. I don't think it has, it's mostly cross stitch. So again, here's a whole band of double running stitch, fairly simple. This is all worked over 4 threads. And then this section here, this one was fun. This is, this side is double running. This is all cross stitch, and you can kind of see each of these cross stitches is outlined or back stitched around the outside of it. You can see the detached buttonhole here on these. And again, this is not on the back. This is only on the front. You run threads across and then stitch over top of them. So these stitches are entirely worked on the top. So that's that section. You can see these are work going different directions. These are work going different directions. So it was a challenge, but it was fun. I like challenges. So, and then we have another section here. And this is, again, you can see these are just like X's. They're just half crosses, basically. This is all double running stitch. This is cross stitch. There's a little bit of double running up in here. I think she was just filling in these areas. That's what they did a lot. She started on this side and worked over and went, oh, I have room left. Now what do I do? So, and then this section here is the diagonal cross stitch, which is one of my favorite stitches. I use this a lot in a lot of samplers I design. It makes a really nice, let me zoom in a little bit. It makes a nice vine because it travels well. It's very thick. You can see how heavy it is. I'd not stitched this much before of diagonal cross stitch, because all these vines are, then they have a little tendril on the end of them. Everything is diagonal cross stitch, and I really enjoyed it. Now the straight areas are regular cross stitch. When I use this stitch, I usually use cross with bar in between, because it's also heavy and it kind of gives a heavier look to it. But I did it the way Sary did, and did just cross stitch. Here's her initials, like I said, and then 1710 over here. And again, I did the 1710 over 2 threads to match how she did it. Now this stitch here is double herringbone. And this stitch at the bottom, you can see is back stitch. And you see it's just heavy back stitch. So that is Sary Outfil. Again, I can't tell you how excited I am to finally have her done. And because of that, I decided the next stitch on the stitch of the month should be diagonal cross stitch. So I'm going to go over that in a minute. I have to confess, I did not get the sample stitched. I just realized that when I started doing my video. I was busy working on some other things, and then just realized I never got my sample stitched, but it's all diagrammed and I will be able to demonstrate it for you. So I'm going to do that now. Also, I wanted to mention this book. I don't believe it's in print. I think they re-released it a few years ago. I did put some links in. It is available on Amazon. There may only be one copy, but it was very expensive. It was like 50 some dollars. I'm including 3 links to Etsy. Now, if you do a search on Etsy, in the description below, like where the link is, it gives you the full name and then Darlene's name. And all I did was put the name of the book in the search and in Etsy, and it came up with 3 different versions of this book, anywhere from, I think the cheapest was $19.99 up to 30 some dollars. There's paperback versions. There's a few different versions. This one's really nice because it has the ring binder, so it does open and lay flat. But now in the future, these may not be available, but it's very easy, like I said, to do a search on it and find a copy of the book. You can check eBay, you can check Etsy. Again, I found it on Amazon, but it was much less expensive on Etsy. So I did provide a few links, and then of course the name of the book, and you can just kind of copy and paste it and do a search on it. But I do, if you love samplers and want to learn a lot of really cool stitches, and actually in here is where I found the detached buttonhole stitch. This is where I had done it before, but I hadn't done it for a lot of years. So I did want to, she shows how to start it, and gives very detailed instructions and even how to do it diagonally. So there's a couple different ways you can do it. But anyway, I just highly recommend this book. Again, I make no money on any of this. I do not get money for anything, any of these books or links, other than maybe teaching the class, but that's what I do. So now, stitch of the month for August. Again, I decided to do the diagonal cross stitch. So this is the little band that this is the diagonal cross stitch here. And then as a bonus, these are little eyelets over 2 threads in there. It's hard. I'll show you the bigger version in a minute. Again, I did not stitch my sample, but the directions are here, and I'm going to demonstrate for you. So this will be available as a PDF. If you join the Stitch of the Month group on Facebook, there's a link in the bottom. This will be available, and all the other stitches, all the different versions of this sampler. And this is the actual stitch diagram. So here you can see these are the little eyelets over 2 threads, Algerian eyelets over 2 threads. Here's your diagram for your detached, or for your diagonal cross stitch. Here's the little, they're just like regular Algerian eyelets, except they're done over 2 threads. So they're very tiny. If you want, you can do cross stitch. It doesn't matter, or you can put something else in there. I just wanted something small. I did it with the dark green thread, and I did the flowers are in pink, the palest pink, and the center is yellow. You can use whatever colors you want. On here, I give DMC colors, and I just picked out just 2 reds, pink and a red, 2 greens, a light blue and a dark blue, and a yellow. And then I decided to stitch mine in sulky threads. So I also give the numbers for the sulky threads I used on the outside. You can use whatever colors you want. If you want to use purple and orange, it's your sampler. So it'd be a kind of fun way to experiment with colors and other things. So I am going to talk about diagonal cross stitch, and then I will demonstrate as usual. And that is this August Stitch of the Month. Again, this will be available as a PDF on the Stitch of the Month Facebook group. The link is available. When you submit your to join, be sure to answer all the questions. Not everybody answers all the questions. You may have to scroll down to get them all. And then I have to reject and ask you to please fill out the answer all the questions. I have had some strange people try and join that they're not stitchers. So I'm very fussy. We have over about 500 members, but I just want to make sure everybody's a stitcher. I don't need any spammers in the group. So I'm going to talk about the stitch a little bit and then demonstrate for you. So on the right here, you'll see the full chart for the entire sampler. And then in the center is the chart for this band. And I want you to notice that it has 2 stitches, then it goes up in the diagonal, and then it has 3 stitches across, 3 cross stitches across, and then goes down. So when you're stitching this, make sure you follow the chart for the exact number of stitches in between and the exact number of stitches to go up. Now this band is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 high. So the diagram may only show 3 or 4 stitches. So make sure you count exactly to make sure it fits on your sampler. Again, this sampler is 25 stitches wide, and use whatever linen you want. You need like an even weave or a linen. This will not work on a 14 count fabric. So you really need to use an even weave or linen. And it's a good way to try it out because these bands are small, so you can try the stitch, do a little bit. If you don't like it, you never have to do it again. That's the best thing. But try it. You might really like it. So here we have the diagram. So again, you can see on the diagram, I only show 1 cross stitch. We're starting down in the bottom left-hand corner. So on the sample or on the sampler itself, on the chart, it shows 2 cross stitches. So you'll do, this would be your second cross stitch, the one that says 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's a regular cross stitch. And when you go down at 4, you come up 4 threads to the right, or 2 threads from step 2. So it's a long stitch, a long horizontal stitch over 4 threads. So that's 5, 6. Then you're going to come up at 7, which shares holes with step 3 and go up 4 threads. So that's 7, 8. Then you're going to come up in the same hole as 5 for step 9 and do a diagonal or a half across, a diagonal stitch for 9, 10. Then you're going to go 4 threads to the right for the next step for 11, 12. You're going to come up at 11, go 4 threads over into the same hole as 8 and 10 for 11, 12. Then you're going to come up in the same hole as 5 and 9 for 13 and go down 4 threads up. And you keep going up as many as called for on the actual chart itself. Again, this diagram is smaller. I do it that way to only do a few stitches so you can see how they're done and still make it big enough, because if I put all the stitches in, it would get smaller and smaller and it would make it harder to see. Then when you get up to the top, which is step 19 and 20, you actually work a cross stitch in there. So you would work that cross stitch, and then as it is on the chart, you would work 1 more cross stitch. Then the next cross stitch would be the 1, 2, 3, 4 of the next diagram going down. So, and you work it pretty much the same way going down. Once you get the rhythm going, you'll be able to work this pretty quickly. So, and the other thing I wanted to talk about is the little Algerian eyelet. This is worked over 2 threads. Now, like I said, if you want to work a cross stitch, you are welcome to, or a Smyrna or whatever you want. But I did this because it's a little more decorative and it works over 2 threads. So it's just like a regular eyelet. You just come up at 1. You can come up in any corner you want, I have a chart diagram to come up in the upper left-hand corner and go over one thread and down one thread and into the center. So all the rest of your stitches are going to go into that same hole. So then you come up one below one and go into the center for 3, 4, up at 5, down into the center, up at 7, and all the way around. And if you want to pull this a little tight to open up the holes, you can do that, because eyelets are sometimes a pulled stitch to create an open area, or you can leave it a little tighter. So next, I'm going to demonstrate the stitches for you in person. Okay, so here we are. So what I've done, I've come up here, and then I'm going to work. I'm going to follow the chart itself. So I'm going to work a cross stitch, just a regular cross stitch. And then, I have a really long thread here. I am going to work the first cross stitch as shown on the diagram. So this is step 1, 2, 3, 4 on the diagram. Then what I'm going to do, I'm going to count over 4 threads or 2 threads over from this step. So this is going to be a long horizontal stitch over 4 threads. Then I'm going to come down into this same hole with step 3. This is step 7, 8. And then I'm going to do the diagonal stitch, which is 9, 10. Then I'm going to work a horizontal. So what you're going to be doing is a horizontal, a vertical, and a diagonal. So I'm going to come over 4 threads. And then I'm going to go up. You need to go up here. So just follow the numbering on the diagram until you get 5 stitches done. 1, 2, 3, 4. Actually, there'll be 4. So how I count this when I'm moving up is the plus, because it makes a plus on here. So that's 1, 2. So I have to do a couple more. Whoops. And then I can drop my needle. So it's horizontal. Oops. Now I have a knot. In case you don't know, when you get a knot like that, if you loop your thread in it, it should pull right out. Loop your needle in it, and it should pull right out, except of course mine wrapped around my thread. See, this is fun. Isn't this fun? But you can tell I'm really stitching. And let me get my scissors and I will fix this. So I'm not going to mess with it. There. Ta-da! I fixed it. So there's my horizontal stitch. That's why you don't work with really long threads. Except I have to, because this is really large canvas. So you have to excuse me. My allergies are acting up. So there's my vertical and my diagonal and the horizontal. And the vertical. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm looking at the diagram, the chart, which shows 1, 2, 3, 4 of these pluses. So the next thing I want to do is work the next cross stitch. Right, correct. And you can also count next to it. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this is 5. So this is 5 high. I'm just giving you a couple different ways to count it, because you can get distracted by it can be hard to count figure out how to count this stitch. And a lot of times when I use it in a large pattern, I have you do a row of cross stitch first, and then we work this next to the cross stitch, and it makes it a little easier. So now I'm going to work 3 cross stitches. This is the same as it is on the diagram. Of course, I'm using blue thread instead of green, but I think we can use our imaginations. So here's the 3 cross stitches. Now, if you look at your diagram, this is step 1, 2, 3, 4. Then step 5 shares this hole with step 1, and then you're going to count over 2 threads. So it's the opposite of what you were doing before, because we're going to go down. And then we're going to come up here 2 threads below step 3. And this is 7, 8, and then 9, 10. And then you're going to do the same thing, the horizontal, and then vertical, and then diagonal. So you'll just finish all 3. There's 2 little bumps, the little vine. Pull this over. You can see here's your vine. So I'm going down here now. So you go down here, do your 3 stitches up and down, and note there's 1 stitch here at the end. So the next thing I'm going to do is the eyelet stitch, so you can see how that's done. So let me do 4. So I'm just going to show you how to do the eyelet stitch. So I'm going to use the same thread. I'm going to come up here. If you look on your chart, this is where your first stitch would be. I'm going to zoom in a little bit on this to make it easier to see. There we go. So I've come up, this is step 1. Now, if we look at the chart here, this is where I am here. And if we look at this diagram, it's hard to see the pale pink on here, but there's a stitch right here. So I've come down 2 over 2, and this stitch will be right in the middle of those 3 cross stitches across the top. So this is tiny, so we're going to go down over 1 thread and down 1 thread. Now all the rest of the stitches are going to go into this same hole. So once you have your first one placed, you're good. So there's the side. Now we're going to work across the bottom. And again, you can do cross stitch here. You can do whatever you want instead of these stitches. I just thought I'd like to do something a little different. So I did a little bonus extra stitch. So it's kind of like a double stitch of the month, even though we'd already done Algerian eyelets. I wanted to go over it again. Now this is where you would move to your next one. Now what you want to be careful of is with Algerian eyelets, don't drag your thread across the open hole here. So you could come down, and like I said, it doesn't matter what corner you work in or what corner you start from. And here's your next one, or you could have gone the other way. So there's the next Algerian eyelet. It's a fun stitch. I hope you enjoy this stitch of the month. And then as always, if you have any questions or anything, you can send me a message. You can comment on the video. My email is in the also in the links at the bottom, and I would love to hear from you. So I hope you enjoyed Stitch of the Month. Again, that is one of my favorite stitches. A little favor I wanted to ask was, how do you think I should finish this? I am not going to frame her. I'm not going to frame Sary because I travel and I like to bring samples with me. And if I won't be able to bring her with me in a big, huge frame. So I will probably attach her to a piece of linen, or not a piece of linen, a piece of fabric of some kind. I'm not sure. If you have any ideas, let me know. I'm trying to think of the best way. Of course, I want to back her. I want something on the back. and I back her with fabric, and then when I roll her up, she will be safe. I'll probably put a some kind of bell pull across the top so it can be hung up, and then it'll lay flat too, because it probably have to put weights across the bottom, or a bell pull top and bottom, and then that will help hold it straight. But just any ideas you have on how to attach it, or what kind of fabric to attach it to, I would really appreciate some input. Some of you people that are really good at finishing, I'm not real good at finishing things, but I can frame samplers. I do that a lot. But I just wanted to thank you again for watching. I hope you enjoy this video. I hope you are as happy as I am about finishing Sary. As to what I'm going to do, I'm not sure. I don't know if I want to do this as a class. Again, that's something else I would like to know. Would you rather have a class or just a chart? If I did a class, I may do just make a smaller piece, a companion piece to this with all the stitches in it, so you can try them without having to work on the big piece. But the class kit would probably include this also. Again, I'm not sure. I could just do a chart with a kit available with because this is silk thread. Not everybody has access to it. I mean, you could do it in DMC if you want. And then of course there'll always be real, my directions. I try and make them as good as possible. And then maybe have a video to go with it that you can get once you purchase the kit. You get access to the video. That's what I did with my the Fair Virtue sampler up there. The kit for that is available in my Etsy class, or in my Etsy shop. And then there is a 2-hour video that goes over all the stitches in that. So it's like an online class that you don't have to travel to take. You can learn diagonal cross stitch and all these other stitches, and get the full kit, which is Dinky Dyes silks and fabrics by Stephanie, hand dyed linen. So and then of course lots of pages of instructions. So please give me some input, comment on below the video, email me. I like comments on the videos also, and I hope you subscribe. I hope you sign up. Again, let me know what stitches you want to learn. September 1st, we'll have a new stitch. So I'm not sure what that's going to be. Sometimes I don't decide until a day or two before I record the video. So obviously, because I forgot to stitch it on my own Stitch of the Month sampler, but I will have it done for next time. So again, all the links are posted below. Please visit the links. There's links to my FlossTube channel, my email, my Etsy shop, the Stitch of the Month Facebook group, so you can get the PDFs of this. I'm on Instagram. I have a bio link page, which kind of links everything together. You can get to everything from there. There's a buy me a coffee link if you would like to buy me a coffee for demonstrating and giving you these free stitches. Not required. I love doing this. So whatever you feel. There's a link to the Swanee Stitchers EGA because they're doing the Grandma's Button Box class. So you can get to that. There's links, like I said, to several copies of the Proper Stitch, which are for sale. So again, thank you so much. And I will see you again on the 15th of August. Thanks.